Okay, I've got a crazy story for you today. Aliens mass hypnotizing hundreds of people, mind controlling hundreds of people. This is nuts. Okay, before I get too far into it, please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media. I'm trying to get the word out about what's going on Cosmic Road, where I discuss UFOs and the paranormal. And as I'm going through it, please comment below and let me know what you think about all this craziness. Okay, let's dive in. This is from a fascinating interview I found online. This is from a channel that exclusively interviews experiencers and has some really fascinating encounters. I really highly recommend this channel. I'll link to it below. It's just called Experiencer Interviews. Okay, so this guy belongs to a rock band, and he and his whole band were abducted by aliens. And there's a long story. It's a very long interview, and his personal story is very long, and he has some really fascinating encounters. And so I highly recommend you checking out the whole video. But this is the part that really stood out to me. So he and his whole band have been kidnapped or abducted by aliens, and they've had their encounter, their experience, and they have been released, and their minds have been wiped. And they are going on to do the show. Okay, they have been on the way to a concert when to do this show, and so they get there and their minds are wiped. And this one guy, the guy that's relating the story, I think he kind of remembers a little bit, but basically he doesn't remember anything. And when they get to the show, everybody's missing. The crowd is gone. There is nobody there to listen to their performance. Now, they're not a huge band or anything, but they were expecting a turnout of at least a few hundred people. Well, guess where those few hundred people were? Okay, I'm not going to spoil it. I'm going to let the gentleman relate it in his own words, starting now.
So the guitarist, Tom, he handed me his keys, and he said, "Can you go back to the van and get the dolly and bring it so we can load everything up? And in the meantime, we'll wind up all the cords and stuff." And I said, okay. So I left with his keys, and I went back in that back door into the back of Brock University. And there was nobody in the hallways. Nobody was there. And I'd had a couple of drafts, and I needed to use the washroom. So I followed this one hallway off to the side because I knew there would be a bathroom down there somewhere. And I walked down the hallway, and as soon as I turned the corner, I saw all these people, like about 250 people or something, all lined up in the hallway. And they were all just standing there. Nobody was talking to each other. They were just standing and waiting. And I found that really strange. And so I went into the washroom, and I came out, and I walked up to this woman that was standing there in the lineup. And I said, "Can I ask you, what are you all doing standing here in the lineup like this?" And she said, "Well, the men told us to stand here." And I said, "What men?" And she said, "There's some men that they come and they take a few of us at a time." And I looked at her, and all of a sudden I came to this realization that this was our audience. And they were all standing here in the hallway. And that's why nobody showed up at the bar, because these beings, or somebody told them to stand there in the hallway. So at that point, one of the beings came in through the back door, and he'd seen me standing there out of the lineup talking to this woman. And he said, "Hey, you there?" And I said, "What?" And he said, "You were told to stand in the lineup and not talk to each other." And I said, "No." I said, you don't understand. I'm not part of this." And at that point, he looked like a human being to me. And I didn't really notice that he was speaking to me telepathically until later on. But he said, "Well, stand there with them now." And I said, "I can't." I said, I've got to go and get the dolly and bring it to the bar so we can load our equipment up. And he said, well, I need you to stand in that lineup. And I argued with him, and he realized he wasn't getting anywhere with me. And so he said, well, then come with me right now then. He said, I'll take you right now. And I said, well, if it doesn't take too long, because I've got to go and get the dolly. And so I went with him, and he took me outside, and it was winter time, and the ground was covered with about 5 or 6 inches of snow. And in the snow, I could see hundreds of footprints all going in a line to the back of the building. And then they went around the corner and disappeared. So I was wondering what was going on. And then I was looking at this being that was walking with me, and he was beginning to look less and less human and more like a gray. And I thought, this is really weird. Something strange is going on here. And so I followed him because I was curious as to where all these footprints were leading. And we went around the corner. And as soon as we got around the corner, there was this big saucer-shaped craft again sitting on the pavement behind the university. And you couldn't see it from until you get around the corner. And there it was sitting in this paved section. And there was a ramp going up, and the door was open. And he started to take me up this ramp. And this woman came to the doorway, and she was dressed in like a Red Cross outfit, like a nurse. And he said to her, "Can you take this guy now? Because he's got to go somewhere." And she said, "No, I can't take him now. I've got too many people in here as it is." And he said, "Well, he has to leave, and he'll be missed. Like, can you not just take him now?" And she said, "No." And he said, "Well, what do you want me to do with him?" She says, "I don't know. Take him where he's got to go."
Whoa, isn't that insane? Hundreds of people were mind controlled by these aliens who were doing something. We still don't know what. The gentleman narrating the story, the experiencer, he never actually fully went through it. He was taken somewhere, and they didn't have time to deal with him, so they just sent him back. So he never actually got to find out what the aliens were doing. But what were they doing? What was that all about? I mean, that's a crazy story. I love it, but man, that's creepy. So, I mean, they could just come into a public place and mind control hundreds of people. That's nuts. That's alarming. What the hell were they doing? I kind of wish that he had gone through it so that we would know what they were doing. Of course, all this is coming from, he's been hypnotized and regressed, and these are recovered memories from a regression hypnotherapy. But a truly fascinating encounter. I just wanted to share that with you. I don't know what it means. I've come across somewhat similar stories before, but this was kind of unique, kind of original, where they just come into a public place and they mind control hundreds of people that don't seem to be previous abductees. Because that's what I've seen before in groups when they're controlling groups. It's usually previous abductees. But these don't seem to be previous abductees unless everybody arriving at the concert was an abductee, which doesn't really ring true to me. So it's just a crazy story. I believe it though. I mean, unless they have deliberately implanted false memories in his head, which is always a risk with these, experiencer recovered memories. They've been mind wiped, and what they remember, how accurate is it? I think that a lot of it is probably very accurate. But you never know. So take it with a grain of salt, but a fascinating story nonetheless. Let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media. Oh, and if you do hit subscribe, please hit the bell next to it to be notified of future videos. Until next time, Cosmic Road out.